Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com. Miriam, this is so exciting. So excited to catch up with you and to speak with you. So, your episode actually came out on your first episode with the Tough Girl Podcast first came out on April 14th, 2020. Miriam Lancewood, Women in the Wilderness, a story of survival, love and self-discovery in New Zealand. But I think we must have recorded the episode possibly in at the end of 2021. We obviously didn't know what was going to happen in 2020. But during that episode, you do share more about growing up in Holland, wanting to be a sports teacher, how you met your husband Peter, traveling together, deciding to live in the wilderness, tramping, what it was like learning how to hunt, catch possums, all of these things, and walking the Tiara Road Trail, 3,000 kilometers from the north to the south. So people can go back and listen to that episode. But Miriam, I'd love for you to maybe just give a brief introduction, tell everybody just a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and where you're currently based. And then we'll go back to your story from when we last spoke at 2020.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back. Yes, so my name is Miriam Lancewood. Yeah, in 2010, my husband and I decided to leave Civilisation and live with a bow and arrow and a backpack and a tent in the wilderness of New Zealand, where my husband is from. I was born in Holland, but I immigrated there. And we lived for 7 years like nomads. We moved around always, and we lived on hunting and gathering plants. And we saw sometimes nobody for weeks or sometimes months on end. And we went in there without technology, no phone, no emergency beacon, not even a clock. And so for us, it was one big experience in experiment. What happens with body and mind when living so far away from civilization? I mean, New Zealand is already far away. And then in the wilderness, these southern Alps of the South Island, even further, we were in places where no one had ever lived. And so that was an amazing experience for 7 years. So we talked about that in the first episode. And our last year in the wilderness, we walked the Tiara Trail, which is 3,000 kilometers through the North Island and the South Island. And after that walk, we thought, right, where else shall we go? And that's when we went to Europe. And we basically left New Zealand then. That was 2017. And we walked through Europe, starting in France. So there's many walkways there. And we followed the E4 walkway. And we ended up in Bulgaria. And in Bulgaria, hardly any people left because everyone is leaving. And the houses are very cheap. And there's a lot of forest and wild animals like bears and wolves. And we saw a little cottage. And the cottage only cost €2,500. And we bought it. And that's where I am right now.
Oh, fantastic. So you're living in a home now.
Yeah, that's right.
How are you doing? How is Peter doing? Because is he 20 years older than you? I can't quite remember.
30 years older. Even worse. I'm going to be worse than 20. Yes. There it is. So I was 22 when I met Peter and he was 52. And I always say, had I met him in Holland, I would have thought, what would my parents think and my friends and all that? Because, he could have been my father, obviously. But we met in India, and in India, you can do whatever you like. So I thought, well, we'll just travel together and see how it goes. And that's 18 years ago. So I am now 40, just turned 41, and he is 70. So totally different situation. It's very different from 18 years ago.
That's really, God, it's so weird because I'm 40. It's not, well, I find this weird because I'm 43 and my dad is 72. And so it's I find the age gap very weird, but that's me. How has your life changed in terms of like Peter getting older now, being in his 70s? Are you still managing to go on adventures together, or is that what's happening in that area?
No, it's all finished. It actually got finished because we went to Australia and he got diarrhea in the desert and he got completely dehydrated. And consequently, he got kidney failure. This happens a lot in the outback. First, the doctor said he will recover because it's acute kidney failure. He will recover within a month, but he didn't. And then we went to New Zealand, went again to the doctors and hospitals, and they said that this is chronic kidney failure, and he needs to go on dialysis in order to survive. Now, dialysis, the cleaning of the blood on the machine. You need to go every second day to the hospital, so you need to be near a hospital, live in town, to clean your blood, and that takes 8 hours every second day. We don't even want to live in town, let alone be in a hospital. Certainly I don't. And Peter said, no, I'm not going on dialysis. I'd rather die than doing that. Well, that's a very big decision. And he asked, what's the chances of me surviving without dialysis? And they said, 3%. And he said, oh, God. So we thought, okay, he's going to die. We maybe have 6 months together. So we rented a little house, very expensive, because you're not going to save money when you're going to die, and in New Zealand. And he did not die. He somewhat recovered, and this is now 6 years ago. So it's a little medical miracle that he's still here. So his kidneys are weak, and he cannot do long walking or anything. Traveling is very exhausting for him. So our whole life has changed since that day in Australia.
Having that conversation with your partner, I suppose, literally around the concept of dying and death, like how much of a say did you get in this? Or because because I can't even imagine, like somebody you spent like, 18 years of your life with, and then it's like, actually, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be on dialysis 8 hours a day every second day. That's just not a life that I want to choose. What was that conversation like? I mean, I suppose that must have been, oh, sorry, I'm putting words into your mouth. I'll let you answer the question.
Well, it's very hard because one thing that keeps us together is our freedom, isn't it? Our freedom of living and traveling and moving around. And also we let each other free and, open relationship and all those sort of things. Freedom is our main thing. And living in town, he knows very well that that would be an absolute prison to me. So it's very hard. I don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to lose my freedom. So we didn't talk too much about it because he knows me very well, and he decided, no, this is my decision. I'd rather die than going on dialysis. And the only thing I could wish for is hope for the best that he didn't die. But I was prepared for him to die. I mean, he's a sort of a stubborn man, I can't change his mind anyway. But to be honest, I was glad. I was glad I didn't want to live in town.
So what's it like living in Bulgaria? Do you speak the language? Are you part of like a smaller community, or is your house sort of in the middle of nowhere? So you still got sort of that freedom and you're not sort of surrounded by people?
Hmm. Yeah, so after Peter got sick, he really needed a base. And luckily, we had bought this little house. And so we decided to come back to Bulgaria, even though we were in the middle of COVID. So not many people are vaccinated here. And the doctors in New Zealand said, if you go to Bulgaria, you might die of COVID. And again, Peter said, right, I'd rather go than being in New Zealand. We have a little house there. I want to go there. I'm going to risk it. So you understand, Peter's always risking it. Ever since I know him, he's risking his life and always choosing freedom and always choosing his own way. Anyway, so we came here and it's absolutely wonderful here. We are 2 kilometers walk from a little village with 40 people in it. And this little cottage, it's a stone cottage, off grid, no electricity, no bathroom, no kitchen. You don't get much for your €2,500. No toilet, any of that. It's very primitive. But for us, coming from a tent, it's very luxurious. So we're super happy actually here.
You're still adventuring, which I absolutely love. So how does that work? Like what adventures have you been on? What does that look like?
Yeah, so suddenly I had to become much more independent. So Peter got sick. He said, I can't travel anymore, but that certainly shouldn't stop you. So I was like, oh, yeah, it's hard for me to do things on my own because I'm so used to always doing everything with him, you see. But yeah, I was sort of forced to, and I still want to go out. And I actually just come back yesterday from Uzbekistan. So I went with two friends climbing the mountains in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. And we flew out from Uzbekistan. Fantastic adventure. And yeah, so I have to rediscover what is friendship. Like I'm so used to always being with Peter. And now I'm suddenly surrounded by two friends. That's very different, but also very exciting. And I've learned so much about humanity and friendship. And, everyone is different, isn't it?
So how did that idea come about? Was that you driving it? It was one of your friends saying, come on, let's go and do this.
Yeah, I've made up this idea. So last year too, I come up with this idea, and I recommend other people do the same to organize an expedition. The word alone is just fantastic. So then I look at my friends, anyone who's interested, who wants to come, who's got experience, who I get on well with. And then we start the training, and I make the training schedule. I make the trainings plan, and I'll tell them you have to go running twice a week, and you have to do core strength exercises and all these things. And then everyone is fit and ready. And yeah, then we set out, and I'll make the route. I call myself the expedition leader, and yeah, it's great fun. Absolutely great fun. I absolutely love it.
And is it still like a slow form of travel, or are the expeditions, are they more sort of like time sensitive? What does travel look like with your friends compared to when you were traveling with Peter?
Yeah, and indeed, very different because we only have 2 months. So suddenly it's like, right, we got 10 days for that, resupply. Then we got 2 days to get across the border, etc. So it's very planned, very, very different, and not so relaxed as living in the wilderness with Peter. No, it's totally different activity. But we do get to see a lot of amazing landscape and be up so high. We were almost at 5,000 meters. And yeah, it's a little dangerous and exciting and a true adventure. Yeah, but very different.
Are you taking your bow and arrow with you? Are you sort of hunting in the mountains and gathering like the food and the plants that way, or is your nutrition quite different now?
Yeah, very different. No, in other countries, you cannot just take a bow and arrow. You need to get a hunting permit. There's all sorts of regulations. No, the hunting I really only do in New Zealand. I haven't got rifles here. It's all complicated. So I've given up on that. I do collect plants to eat and berries if I know them, and I ask the local people, like, is this edible? Because a lot of things I don't even know. But generally, no, we have to eat expedition food, like tins of fish and couscous. Although my friend did take a rod, and so we tried fishing everywhere. But it's weird. In some lakes are plenty of fish, and other lakes not at all. So yeah, I did learn a bit about fishing.
What did you learn about yourself? Because I suppose almost being not, I'll just say it, but I don't necessarily mean it, but like not necessarily like overly reliant on Peter, but suddenly you're expedition leader, you're sort of in charge, you're having to make the decisions. Like, how did that change you?
Yeah, indeed. Because before, Peter being always the more experienced one and more wise and less impulsive than I am, he took the lead. He always studied the map. He made the routes. And suddenly I had to do that. Yeah, so suddenly I am in charge. I'm responsible. So I have to think a bit more. Yeah. Makes me more serious that way. On the other hand, what I discovered is I am a different person if I'm surrounded by different people. Sounds logic, right? But that's what I very much experienced. Like Peter is quite a serious sort of a person. He likes to go in depth in conversations and discover through dialogue. And that's great. I love him for that. But there's not that much laughter involved. And when I am with my friends in Tajikistan, we laugh all day. We had just so much fun, just silly little jokes. And I thought, well, this is great fun too. Very different. But yeah, I discovered another side of myself.
Why did you pick Uzbekistan?
Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. Yep.
Why did you choose those countries? Was there specific mountains that you'd heard about? How did you plan the route? How did you research the route? What did that look like?
Yeah, Tajikistan. I love to go to countries that no one even knows where it is. So I heard it I read it in a book or something, Tajikistan. And that is the beginning basically of the Himalayas. So I love the Himalayas. I spent quite a bit of time in India last year too. And then I thought, okay, if you look at the map, Tajikistan, the Pamir Mountains is basically the beginning. And mountains, I am fascinated by mountains. The higher, the better. Also, because I discovered that when you go over 4,000 meters, you feel high. And not only like high in altitude, but you feel like your mind changes. You feel almost like high, like you're stoned without using any drugs. And at least I do. And I feel just so cheerful, and the whole state of mind is different. Also because you don't have so much appetite, so your whole body and mind is just different. And the sense of space up there is just amazing. So you feel a lot of space, and in your mind, it gets more space. There's space in between your thoughts. That's absolutely fascinating to observe.
I think I've heard it described as like I don't know if it's a scientific definition, but it's like the experience of like awe, which you can get from being in these incredibly magnificent when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're this tiny, tiny dot and you're looking
Yeah,
around at the mountains and the scenery. And
yeah,
it's just like, sometimes for me, I've become really like emotional. Like I'm just like this is just amazing. Like to be
yeah.
out in these places. And what does the day to day look like? What time are you waking up? Like what are you eating? How far are you walking? Like how are you navigating? Talk us through the day to day realities.
Yeah, the beauty is so overwhelming that indeed sometimes I have tears in my eyes just looking around. And you feel indeed so small, and all your psychological problems even smaller, like they're completely obviously irrelevant. Yeah, so that's to start with. So we wake up always very early because we go to bed so early, but in the dark, often at like 4 o'clock or so, which is ridiculous. So I just lay there in the morning waiting for a bit of daylight. And then we get out and we light a fire with yak dung, which is yak is a kind of a cow, and the dung is the shit. So cow shit. And because it's super dry up in Tajikistan, it takes a little bit to get that fire going, but eventually it will. Then we make coffee or tea or whatever. And then we make chapatis, which is flat bread made from flour and water. Because we're not going to carry any bread or anything because bread contains water. Well, the water is just in a creek. So you may as well just make your chapatis right there. That was our thinking. And we just eat that with a bit of oil. This time we didn't even take peanut butter or tahini or nothing to save weight. Because we had to bring 2 weeks' food, which is quite heavy. Our packs were 25 kilos. And we got the lightest gear because I got a new sponsor, bushcraftshop.nl, and they provided me with the lightest gear possible. But still, our packs were so heavy, mostly because of food. And so we get our breakfast, eat all that, and then pack everything up. And we follow the route that I made on the Gaia app. So I've got a Gaia navigation app. But Gaia is good, but any other app is also good. It doesn't matter. And I made the route like we're going today over a pass, for example. So I can see precisely that we have to go 500 meters up in elevation and then 600 down or whatever. And I also look at where's the next water coming from, where we're going to camp. It has to be a little bit flat, you see, because in the mountains, everything is so steep. You have to find a good camp spot, not always easy. And then in Tajikistan, the biggest surprise was how strong the sun was. I'm used to strong sun in New Zealand. They always say you get burned so quickly. But Tajikistan, wow, that was a different level up. No skin could be exposed to the sun. Everything has to be covered. In the end, I was wearing my gloves because my hands were burning. And that was with sunscreen. Absolutely unbelievable.
Was that because of the altitude?
Yeah, I think so. And the clean air and being at nearly 5,000 meters. Yeah, unbelievable, and not a cloud to be seen. So, yeah, that was the biggest surprise.
Did you meet many locals? Did you have many interactions with the people of the country?
Sometimes, yes, the yak herders or the goat herders they are walking through, and that was fantastic. We got invited in. They live in sort of stone shelters. They're cooking on yak dung, of course, and yeah, so we sit down and they give us buttermilk to drink, sort of kefir, yogurt, because that they got plenty of. They got plenty of milk, so they can make all those things. And then we give them some nuts or everything, anything we could spare. And then they were busy with something, and I'm interested. What are they doing? And they got this sort of a tube, and they are making butter. And what a job that is! I consider myself quite strong, but I couldn't last much longer than 20 minutes. Moving like a huge spoon around, say, that then turns milk into butter. Yeah, so it's nice to do those things.
Bit of a random question. Does the yak dung, like, what does it smell like when it's burning on the fire?
Oh, not so bad actually. You think, oh, this is disgusting, but it's all dried. You know, a typical smell, but no bad smell. No, and they've got a mountain of it. Those local people who live there, mind you, they only live there 3 months a year because the rest of the time it's too cold. So they also nomadic. They go down to lower elevation, and they got a mountain of yak dung. It's unbelievable. Yeah, but yeah, they do recognize that I can squat very easily. Most Westerners can't, and I squat around the fire, and I show them my billy, and it's obviously been in the fire, and obviously I can deal with fire and all that. I think they appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not the typical sort of a tourist coming by.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, what was it like sort of being a woman over there? Like, did you notice like any sort of obvious differences, or did you feel, sort of safe and were you able to engage?
Yeah, because we also did a lot of hitchhiking, and then always the first question is, "Where are you from?" Then I'll say New Zealand. I consider myself a New Zealander rather than Dutch. But anyway, second question: How old are you? I don't know why they always keep asking that. And the third question is, "Where are you married?" Then I say, "Yeah, married." And then I say, "Where's your husband?" Because this is very unusual in Muslim countries. How can you travel by yourself and with a friend? How come your husband is not here to accompany you? So then I say, oh, my husband, he's looking after the animals because that's what they can relate to. And I say, oh, he's looking after the cow and the goat. We don't have such animals. We only have a dog and a cat. But and then I say, oh yeah, I understand. Very good. Yeah, your husband looks after the animals in the garden. Yeah. But apart from that, it's very, very safe. Super, super safe countries. All for we also been for 1 week in Kazakhstan. And all those four countries, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan, super safe. We hitchhiked around. Our friend, who's a man, went away after 1 month. Only two girls left, Nanette and I. And yeah, very safe. Never had any problems.
Like, how is it when you come home from your adventures and your travels now? Do you get sort of like the adventure blues at all?
I never heard about that word. Why is it? Like you get a little bit melancholic?
Yeah, you just get
Yeah,
sad, like the adventure's over and then you're back home and suddenly you're in your little
yeah,
house again and back to like a normal routine and it's not as
exciting.
exciting. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. That's how I feel. The adventure blues. Yes, it is a bit like, oh God, it's all over now.
Like, how does it work? Like, are you away? Have you got like almost like 2 months at home, 2 months away, like, have you got like a rhythm to it yet of like how long what's the maximum amount of time that you'd like to be away for, the amount of travels and adventures that you go on, but also obviously still spending time with Peter, how does that work?
Yes, indeed. Well, I feel a little bit guilty towards Peter of leaving too long. So I'm a little bit sort of gauging how much I can get away with. But I do understand that traveling for a long time is also not sustainable. I need to rest somewhere because this travel was hard. In the end, both Nanette and I got sick. food poisoning, then we got a bad cold, just generally gone down fast with hitchhiking, being in cities, and it's not sustainable. So I'm super glad to be back here. But I haven't got a rhythm to it. No, every summer I do go away. Last year I was 2 months in the Himalayas with Sophie Hilaire. And year before I was in Turkey and Georgia and Armenia hitchhiking around. So the summer I'm definitely gone. And I realized like, hey, I'm 41 now. How many summers do I have left? Maybe only like 25, right? I cannot afford wasting a good summer. So definitely summer's gone, but I came back and I immediately started planning my next little adventure. Yes, in the winter I'm going on a winter adventure here in Bulgaria.
Where are you going? What are you doing?
I know a person, Sarah Einhorn, who has been the first one in Holland to climb 10 peaks over 6,000 meters. She knows all about snow and ice, and she is willing to teach me how to work with an ice axe and crampons in the middle of winter at -20 in the high mountains. So I'm going with her and learn a thing or two just for a week in the Rila Mountains in Bulgaria.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. It was interesting what you were saying about sort of being like 41 now and thinking, well, how many summers do I have left? Like randomly, I think when I got to 42, I started thinking, obviously, I hope that I'm healthy and well like later on, but I keep thinking, well, when I was like, well, I'm say 43 now, I'd be like, well, that's only 17 years until I'm
Yeah.
60. So actually that's 17,
God,
like 17 adventures, like 17
yeah,
challenges. And
that's
then when
not
you,
much.
it's not much, exactly. Especially like when you look at the world, and I've got a giant map on my wall of the whole world, which is just the most amazing thing. And I look at it and think there's just so many places that I haven't been to. There's so many hikes and adventures and walks that I haven't done. And actually,
Mhm.
I need to start narrowing it down because, like, life is too short, and yeah, you want to absolutely make the most of it. And one of the things that you have been doing is, when we first spoke, you'd written a book called Women in the Wilderness, and you've written your second book called Wild at Heart. Do you want to share more about your second book, what it's about, the writing process, how long that journey's been, and what's covered off in the book?
Yeah. The first one is called Woman in the Wilderness because it's only one. Peter is a man. And yeah, so Wild at Heart was the second one, and that's all about our walk through Europe and how we then went to Australia and how Peter got sick. So going through all that whole process again was almost like a therapy. Like had to think back of how I felt in the hospital. I was just broken, absolutely broken. And I feel really sorry for the people who have to live with loved ones who are in the hospital. This is so crippling. It's unbelievably taxing. Yeah, so I was 5 weeks in the hospital with Peter, always thinking like in the morning when I looked him up and found him again, I was thinking, is he still alive? That is so heavy. It's unbelievable. And going through that writing process, I had to remember that carefully. And yeah, that book came out in 2020. And my publisher asked if I want to write a third one. And yeah, maybe. Maybe with all these adventures in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan and, India and that. I think about it. And I've also published another book called Wilder Journeys. And that's published in the UK and USA, together with Laura King. And we have collected 10 authors, 10 adventurers, and they all written one chapter. So this is a compilation of stories. Yeah, that was last year. That is called Wilder Journeys. And so, yeah.
Especially with like Wilder Journeys, like tell us some of the stories that you've covered off in the book that have really sort of resonated with you.
Oh, one of my favorite is Angela Maxwell, and she's become a very good friend. And she decided to walk around the world on her own. I mean, I've done some adventures, but never quite on my own the way she did it. And she had a little card, and she just walked for 6.5 years. And her chapter is wonderful about how she crossed the desert in Australia and she met this Aboriginal man and how she befriended him and Yeah, what a great inspiration. And I finished reading a chapter and I thought, right, I'm going too. Of course I should walk the world. Where's my backpack? Yes, all of them are such great inspirational stories.
So when we last spoke, we talked about, like sort of your relationship with Peter, but also the different roles that you have. And I suppose it would just be fascinating to learn now, going through what Peter's gone through and what you've just shared about be it going in every day to the hospital, is he still alive, and just how has the dynamic and the roles of your, I suppose, what was maybe a partnership have changed if you're now in more of a caring role and becoming almost someone's carer? Like, how has that changed, like, you?
Yeah, it's very different. So when I was 22, I looked up to him like, wow, he's a, retired university professor. He knows everything. He has done everything. I looked up to him so much. And over the years, that has changed. Now he looks up to me. I'm the one traveling. I'm climbing mountains. And apart from that, I'm also organizing everything. The roof here on this house needs to be replaced. Guess who is doing it? Guess who is building a hut? Guess who is repairing the water pipe? Me. So suddenly I am like the person who does everything and organizes everything, because also he's not so handy on the internet and with payment and all of those things. So everything has completely turned around. He is now more dependent on me, which is very strange, but also sort of a natural thing. I am maturing and he has to come to terms with being dependent on me. And yeah, I have become a bit of a carer, I guess. Although he is fine, he doesn't need. I mean, he can look after himself. He's got less energy, but apart from that, we don't notice his kidney failure. But yeah, it's very different. But I think it's good for me because I become and feel more independent and free and strong. Because one day Peter will not be here. That's a fact, right? And the quicker I come to terms with that, the better. And I have to have a plan B. What will I do when Peter dies? Even immediately, like when he dies tomorrow, which could be the case, a heart attack is very likely in his condition because it could happen anytime. Then, how do I organize a funeral here in Bulgaria? How do I get a death certificate? All of these things I have to think of. Will I feel emotionally? I think about this. Will I be strong enough? Will I fall into a depression? I don't know. A lot of things, of course, I cannot predict. But at least I know that I can look after myself because I'm not dependent on him anymore.
In a way, have you almost, obviously death is inevitable, but are you, oh God, it sounds awful to ask this, but are you almost like putting your life on hold? And is it holding you back from doing what you want to do now that you've got this independence?
That would be Peter's horror scenario. He would absolutely hate that. So he's very much encouraging me to go traveling as much as I like, and very much like go to. He comes up with the ideas. He says, "Oh, you should go to Chad in Africa. No one goes there." All those ideas for me. So I don't feel my life is on hold, and I think it's very healthy for me to come back here and recover. Yeah. So no, luckily I don't feel it that way. If he needs 24/7 care all year round, I would think I would feel rather imprisoned, if I'm very honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that will never be the case.
Yeah. What is your plan B? Like, and it feels awful. I'm sorry. Like, it almost feels awful, like asking these questions, but it's almost like
Oh
it's just the reality of the situation, just because you're so much younger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, straight from the beginning, the day I met him, there was a little voice in my head saying, "Be careful, one day you will see him die." And I was like, "Do you still want to go with him?" And then I consciously decided, yes, I go with it. Bring it on. All of it. The joy of it and then the sorrow of it and the whole lot. That's life. And we talk about this a lot. And so that is a great thing. But yeah, my plan B, I think I will travel. I don't think I will live here. I think that will be very sad to sit here by myself. But yeah, then my problem is, what will I do with a dog and a cat? So I spend a lot of time worrying about that. But yeah, we'll see. But my plan B is for now, but that might change, to live in India. 3 months in India, 3 months in Nepal, and be in the high mountains all the time.
Do you ever regret not having children?
No, no, I don't actually. I think if I had children, well, Peter never wanted to have children, and where would they have grown up, and how would that have happened? I don't think it was a good idea for our life, our nomadic life, and all that. But no, I do see that without children would be absolutely fantastic. My sisters have children; they love them to bits. It's the meaning of their life. But for me, I think I can do loads of adventures because I don't have children.
With your book Wild at Heart, part of the title is the dangers and delights of a nomadic life. And I'd love for you just to share maybe some of those dangers and also some of those delights.
Yeah, well, the danger is when Peter got sick. When so we don't have a house, we're just moving around. Well, that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Until you get so sick. And the woman says, "What's your phone number?" And I said, "I don't have a phone." And in the past, I was always like proud of that fact. We don't have a house, we don't have a phone. In fact, we don't own anything. And, good on us. But at that moment, it felt like, yeah, but this is so silly. We don't even have a house to go to. We don't have a phone. So that's the moment things changed. Yeah, it's that it's dangerous to get so sick in the desert in Australia, in a country you know nobody in. We yeah, no security. That's it. As nomads and the way we live, we had no security, so that's dangerous in itself. But yeah, that's the risk we want to take, and we call that life, and we call that freedom.
Do you have a pension or anything?
A pension? No, but my book brings in just enough savings that if anything happens, I can pay for hospital or whatever, and that should also set me up for old age, as long as I live very simple. But that's one skill I've gained.
Just some of the delights, looking, I mean, I know there'll be just so many like magical moments, but what are some of those, like, I suppose the real highlights, like the delightful moments, the people, I suppose it's almost like the Instagram versus reality, the shots that you share on Instagram versus the realities of actually, well, it's dangerous when you don't have a phone, you're not able to contact people, and actually not having a house, etc. There can be like consequences. But then on the flip side of that, what people really sort of like highlight and share. But what have been some of those like delightful moments?
We started walking in France, and my parents have moved to France, so we stayed with them for a little bit. And then they brought us to the beginning of the trail, the E4 walkway. And all we had was a backpack, and we had two sticks, hazelnut sticks. And we were all prepared, we were fit, we were happy. And they waved us goodbye. And we walked out into the unknown and facing adventure. And it was just such an amazing moment of freedom. And yeah, I will never forget that. We were ready and we're walking into the unknown and with nothing behind. We had no house, nothing. And we're just so free. Yeah, that's an absolute delight to me.
What were the COVID years like for you?
Oh, so we're in New Zealand then. And I was like everyone else. I raced to the supermarket and bought everything, like elbowing my way through. And I bought 500 bullets. And we sat in the middle of Abel Tasman National Park. We were ready for the pandemic. We saw nobody. Also, because doctors had said, if you, Peter, get COVID, you're most likely to die. So you have to be very careful. So we took that seriously. So we locked ourselves into a little hut in Abel Tasman National Park, South Island, New Zealand. And I went hunting, and we had tons of food stashed away in buckets. Yeah, that was it. Didn't really notice much else.
Just the same as per normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So no trouble. And then halfway through, we came to Bulgaria, and they didn't take much notice of COVID. They called their day flu. And so we didn't really notice it here either.
And how's your health been? Have you been healthy?
I've been very good. But as I said, in the last couple of weeks traveling, I got down with a flu and food poisoning. And I just don't go very well in cities. I just get sick.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I'm excited and I don't sleep well. And after some days, I just got done.
You mentioned that you your plan B would be like, 3 months in India and 3 months sort of in the Himalayas and stuff. And you spent time in the Himalayas before. What is that like over in the Himalayas? Talk about your experiences over there and how you travel about.
India is just fantastic. I don't know why, but I am much happier just being in India. I think because those people are just so cheerful. I don't know why. Even the road workers, they have sort of shining eyes and they're so happy to see you. And every day is like a party almost. So I absolutely love India. Next year I'll go back there. And the Himalayas, well, there's the highest mountains on earth. It's amazing. Yeah, indescribable. And then on every mountain pass, they have this little Shiva temple. And then you got the religious aspect. And I'm not very religious, but up there I am. I thank Shiva too. Yeah. And say thanks to the gods. Yeah, you sort of feel connected to that whole element of it.
You're not on social media, are you?
Only on YouTube. And since I got a sponsor, they asked if I'll post bits and pieces if I wanted to. And so, yeah, I will make a little movie about Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. And also the whole Himalayan story is on YouTube too.
Oh, brilliant. So who's your sponsor and how did you find them or how did they find you?
They knew my book and I've been on television in Holland. And I contacted them and they immediately said, yes, yeah, we know you. Yeah, you can be our ambassador. What would you like? I'm like, oh, whoa, it's amazing. So, yeah, they give me a tent and clothing, sleeping bags, all that. It's very expensive stuff, all that outdoor gear. So I'm super happy.
So you've got your YouTube channel and you've got your website and you've got your book. So I'll share all of those links. So Miriam, I'd love for you to share, your final words of advice, final words of wisdom, for other women who want to live a different type of life, who want to be more nomadic, they want to travel, they want to explore, they want to live differently from what society expects from them. What advice would you like to share? But please don't say, just do it. What would you like to say?
I was going to say later is too late. Like, as we said before, how many summers have you got left?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think I haven't got the experience or anything, but really you learn so much along the way. And of course you make mistakes, but you learn again. And also, especially as a woman, the locals will always say, don't go there, it's dangerous. They always tell me every year again and again. When I'm with Peter, no. With Peter, I've got a man. Yeah, he will take care of you. When I'm on my own or with another woman, they will say, don't go there. Well, don't listen to those locals because they will always get you back to safety. But that's not where the adventure lies.
Miriam, thank you for coming back on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about, the changes in your life and what's been happening. And massive congratulations on the books that you've been writing. And I'm excited to follow along with all your future adventures and challenges.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Hey tribe, how are you all doing? I really hope you enjoyed that Tough Girl podcast extra with Miriam. What an absolute inspiration. I think one of the things that I love about the Tough Girl podcast extra episodes is the fact that we get to catch up with the women who've shared their story on the Tough Girl podcast before, just to see what has changed, what's gone on in the years since we last spoke to them. How has their life taken a different direction to what it thought it was going to take? I do find it absolutely fascinating. It's almost like this sort of oral history of the women in the world of adventure. And I just think it's an amazing thing to do. So if you are brand new to the Tough Girl podcast, all the new episodes are basically under the guise of the Tough Girl podcast. And when we speak with a guest who we've had on the Tough Girl podcast previously, it's under the headline Tough Girl Podcast Extra. And generally all of my solo episodes are under Tough Girl Podcast Extra. And these episodes normally come out on a Thursday. They're sort of like the bonus episodes. Although I think this episode came out on a Tuesday. So it doesn't always follow that platform. But hopefully you have subscribed. So if any new episodes do drop, you will get them straight away. On average, I think I'm putting out about just one episode a week at the moment. It's a real struggle for me to get any more episodes out. I do think back to the COVID years and I was doing 2 episodes a week. I don't know how I managed that for so long. So actually, although even saying that, last year, I think I did over 100 episodes, which is just a ridiculous number, but a ridiculous number in the best way, because it's just more women's voices, more women's stories, which is so, so important. So Miriam, obviously, you know, she talked about New Zealand, and I feel every time I mention New Zealand, you'll be thinking, we know, Sarah, you walked the Te Aroa Trail. Okay. But the videos and the vlogs are coming out now. They are on the Tough Girl YouTube channel. So please do go back and give them a watch. It'll just give you more of an idea for what it's like to be out in the wilderness for 4 months, walking every single day with a backpack. Next Tuesday, we're coming actually a lot closer to home. We are coming back to the UK, and we are going to be speaking with Freddie Chauhan. And that episode is going to be coming out on the 11th of February, 2025. So Freddie is an Adventure Queen grant winner, and she's going to be sharing more about hiking the Pennine Way on her first multi-day adventure at 54. So I'm just going to read out sort of the intro bio that we have for the episode. So Freddie is a sports enthusiast and advocate for embracing new challenges, proving it's never too late to take on something extraordinary. At 54, she became an Adventure Queen grant winner, using the sport to embark on her first ever multi-day hike, the 268-mile Pennine Way. Growing up with a passion for sports like hockey and football, Freddie carried her love for physical activity into adulthood, playing hockey at the club level and coaching under sevens football. After losing her mother and finding herself at a crossroads in life, she was inspired by a friend to step into the world of long distance walking. The Adventure Queen grant gave her the push she needed to train, plan and undertake this life-changing journey. In this episode, Freddie reflects on her Pennine Way experience, how she captured it in a documentary with Frit Films, and her advice for women of any age or background who are dreaming of taking their first steps towards adventure. So Freddie's film is actually on YouTube. So if you are looking to watch a really inspiring and incredibly moving documentary about her journey, if you put this into YouTube, the Pennine Way, step by step, side by side. Now you may be thinking, oh, Sarah, isn't that going to take something away from the podcast episode? No, not at all. It just adds to it. So you can listen to the podcast episode first and then watch the movie, or watch the movie first and then listen to the podcast episode. I think it all just builds on the experience and just gives you like a different view and a different perspective. So that was filmed by Frit. So Frit Films, they're on Instagram.com at Frit Film. So go and give them a follow. And obviously the Adventure Queens as well, the Adventure Queen grant. The Adventure Queens do awesome work in the UK with regards to motivating and encouraging women to get outdoors. And especially with the grant, it is a great funding opportunity for women. So go and check it out now, because you know, you've got to be in it to win it. Like, so the grant isn't live now in January. I think it comes out like in October, November time. I could be completely wrong. So make sure you just go and follow them on the social media. You can subscribe to their email newsletter, so you'll get an update. So next time the update comes in, you can apply. Make a note of it, like Adventure Queen grant, put it on your bucket list and think, you know what, I'm going to think of an adventure that I want to do and I'm going to apply for it. Thank you so much for listening. I would love for you to tell one friend about the Tough Girl podcast. Maybe somebody who wants to go on their own first multi-day adventure, or someone who's training for a marathon or a triathlon, or they're just looking for something different and they just need some different inspiration. Get them listening to the Tough Girl podcast. If you could leave a review, that would mean the world to me. It just helps to spread the word. Share it on social media. Tag me in it at Tough Girl Challenges. Use the hashtag Tough Girl Podcast. That would be absolutely epic. If you're in a financially great position at the moment, that's absolutely awesome. I'm so big and proud of you. I would love for you to support the Tough Girl podcast. It would be epic if you could pay it forward. You can sign up as a patron, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. That's either a monthly donation or you can even do an annual donation, but it all does make a big difference. Or you can make a one-off donation via PayPal. It is all really, really appreciated. Thank you so much for all of your amazing support. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all. Give it 110%. Get after it. Go for it. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care. Lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.